Hi everybody, I'm jumping on just a little early. This is Amy Bland for those of you that don't know me personally, and I own, I should say I'm a speech language pathologist as well as the owner of Phoenix Speech Therapy. So I thought it would be a good distraction and idea to start these Fast Fridays. Today I'm going to be talking about voice and voice wellness. And the reason I chose this was because many of us, myself included, have been transitioning during this whole COVID situation. And, we find ourselves in front of the computer more. We also see that many of us are switching over to teletherapy. Maybe we're sitting in front of the computer more. So that brings with it some unique changes and presentations. One being that we may be having more tension in our shoulders, upper backs, and some of us are going to feel it in our throat. Hi, Chrissy. I'm so glad Chrissy is joining us because I was just going to reference that she's a physical therapist that specializes in balance, dizziness, vertigo, any of those areas of vestibular rehab. And she just recently put out a video about Tai Chi with breathing and stretching. It's very gentle and I loved it. I thought it was great, Chrissy. So I've shared it to my page. Hopefully you can see it as well. But it's definitely something I think you should check out. I'm going to be doing a little bit of stretches today as well. It will be a little bit different than what Chrissy did, but some of it may overlap somewhat. So here are a couple of my disclaimers. One is that while I am a speech language pathologist that loves to work with voice and voice difficulties, voice changes, I'm not a physician, nurse practitioner, or physical assistant. Therefore, I cannot provide a medical diagnosis. So in all of those cases, it's important to make sure that if you're noticing any sort of hoarseness or any changes in your voice and it's lasting for more than 2 weeks, you really should see an ear, nose, and throat doctor. They're also known as ENTs, otolaryngologist, or laryngologist, and you want them to directly visualize your vocal cords. Some people do it with a long laryngeal mirror. Some people will actually scope you. So either way, you want to have that information so that if voice therapy is recommended for you, then we know what the situation is. Many voice changes are benign, but some are not. So it's important to be aware of that. So that's my disclaimer. The other thing I just wanted to share was if you are watching this at a later time, because I know many of us are working from home, know that you can continue to post comments or questions and I will get back to you as soon as I can. So my hope is that these videos will be on there to provide some information and at least a beginning point of some of the things that you can do. Okay, so Chrissy really explained this best, but I would agree that posture is extremely important when you are dealing with anything with voice. So I'm sitting down, but you certainly could do it standing. I've had many voice clients who prefer to stand. Usually those are people that are performers. I guess I should also say that I am not a singer, but I've worked with several singers and can certainly help in the way of setting a foundation. So posture. If you're sitting like I am, you want to make sure that you are sitting on the edge of your seat, that you have flat feet. Thank you, Chrissy, for letting me know that you're hearing me. I wanted to make sure. I had some volume issues I'm sure you saw in the last video, so I'm doing this from my phone. So please let me know if you're having any problems with the audio whatsoever, okay? So posture, sitting down, flat feet, and ideally you want to be sitting straight up. Some people benefit from something behind them right here. And some people, it's better to actually sit towards the edge of the seat. They call this a horseback riding posture. So kind of pretending that you are sitting on a horse. So that way your diaphragm is open, your rib cage is open, so you have good breath support when you're doing any voice exercises. We're going to do some more breathing probably the next session because I know I'm going to run out of time. So let's start with some stretches. Just like Chrissy said, and I think any of us would say, when we're stretching, it's supposed to be a gentle stretch. It should not hurt. If it does hurt or it's stiff or it just doesn't feel right, then don't do it. There's no need for that. Your body's telling you respect that, and there's certainly modifications. So as I go through this, if there is something that doesn't seem right, just post it, let me know, and I'll try and give you some modifications during, but if there's something else you need, I can help you with that too. So the first one that I like to do is called a wake up stretch. I'm going to back up a little bit so I have room. And I am sitting on the edge of my seat so that my elbows don't hit the arms of the chair. But basically, you're going to start with your arms together. Some people like to start with their elbows together, and you're going to do this sort of motion. Now, again, depending on what you're dealing with, that might be too much. But you want to kind of, as you open up, you're going to yawn. And then kind of sigh as you come down. And I'm almost pulling so that I get this upper back stretch as well, okay? If that is too much for you, you can certainly start here and just open like this, nice and slow, okay? You do want to include the yawn with the sigh so that you're stretching your muscles in this region as well. And the sigh should be an easy sigh. It should be a pitch that goes from high to low, okay? Any of these you can certainly do up to 10 times. I'm only going to be doing 1 or 2 so that I stay within the time limit. But that's the wake up stretch. The next one would be rolling your shoulders. So some people really have a nice range of motion to roll, and you want to do it nice and slow. This feels really good for me. I've been trying to work out during this time and I'm not in shape yet. You can also move forward, nice and slow. Again, this might be too much. If it's too much, ideally if you can look at yourself in the mirror, that's great. You're going to just gently shrug your shoulders up and then gently shrug them down. Some people also like to move them to the floor too, and you'll feel a stretch there as well, okay? So move up and move down. This is a great one if you are, hey Erin, if you are working at a computer, this feels good, okay? So again, try and just get some of those big muscle groups moving. We're going to move to the neck. Whenever you do any sort of stretches with the neck, make sure that it's nice and gentle because this is your neck, okay? So no tugging, pulling, anything extreme. So the first one that we're going to do is a half neck roll. So if you can just take your chin and gently look down towards your stomach, and then kind of think of, I should have said this in the beginning, think of like a pendulum that swings really slow. That's sort of the movement that you want, okay? So you're going to look gently down at your stomach, and that in itself might be a really good stretch for the back of your neck. And then slowly move up and look up. Pause for a second, come back down to the center, and then to the other side. Okay, so that's one you certainly can do. If that is too much, that's fine. Everybody's different. You're going to start with your head in a neutral position. So this is a neutral position, just facing forward. And then you're going to slowly go to your right shoulder. And again, as far as you can. I definitely have some people that have limited range of motion, and that's fine. And then come back to the center, and then over to the left side, and then back to the center. Okay. And if you're joining me a little bit later, I'm only doing a couple of these, but you certainly could do up to 10 each, depending on what you want to do, nice and slow. This next one is much more intense with regards to neck stretches, so take this one easy. You're going to take your ear, so right ear to right shoulder, you're going to tilt, and you should feel the stretch right down this large muscle here. If you're able to, gently guide, do not yank, gently guide or coax. This hand is just going to kind of lay on your head. It's not pulling, it's just kind of guiding. And if you want even more of a stretch, this arm here, see if you can see, you're going to put your arm down so that you kind of get this counter stretch. You're going to hold this for 5 seconds and keep breathing. And then gently release this arm here, release your right arm and your head, and you're going to do the other side. Tilt first. Gently coax, do not yank or pull, and arm down. One of the things you want to look for in this is you want to keep your shoulders straight. You might start seeing this. See, I'm going out of the camera because I'm pulling my whole head. So when you're doing this, you don't want to bend at your waist. Okay, you want to keep that straight. Okay, so those are some neck stretches. Those tend to feel really good, again, if you are finding yourself in front of a computer more than you typically would. I don't know how many of us are driving long distances right now, but it's good for that too. Okay, the next one is the floor of the mouth. So this one's one that we don't necessarily do a lot of, but certainly can be helpful. So the floor of the mouth is this area here, kind of from this section all the way to where your chin is underneath. It's the softer area. So if you have on rings, turn them so that you don't jab yourself. But very, very gently, you are going to take both hands, knuckles, and you're going to knead while your tongue is behind your bottom front teeth. So close your mouth. Okay, and it might feel a little weird. It should not hurt. None of these should hurt, but we all hold tension in different areas. So I usually share this with all of my clients, and then most of the time people will say, I really like the neck stretches, or I really like this stretch, and you're starting to find where the tension is. One set of exercises I'm not going to do today, but could be beneficial, is if you have TMJ or you find that you are clenching your jaws. There are certain exercises for that too that can help. That's one that I like to see the person doing, because that one can get aggravated if you do have TMJ or if you do have any sort of lockjaw or jaw sensitivities or teeth sensitivities. So if that's something that you're curious about, feel free to private message me, and we can go through that together. Or if you're waking up and you're feeling like you're getting a headache or soreness here, it might be because you're clenching your jaw overnight. Okay, so these are fun. Now we're going to warm up the voice itself. So most people know how to hum, but humming is really specific in the sense that you don't want to push the hum. So it should be really easy, like, So I'm closing my mouth and just letting that tone go through. Some of us hum and we don't even realize we're humming. You know, my husband is always laughing because he'll catch me humming when I'm not even realizing it. So, you know, you can change the pitch or so forth. But humming is really a very good way to get the tension out of your throat and put it more forward. If you are finding that you are humming like this, that is not what you're looking for. It should not hurt. It should not feel uncomfortable. It should not feel strained or rough. If that's happening, then you might need to do a step before you get to a hum. So if you say the word hum and you say it in a very specific way, that could help. So hum. So I'm using the H as my air to really gently touch the vocal cords and gently produce that sound. So that's one way. For those of you that are teachers, performers, ministers, lawyers, attorneys, coaches, anybody that's really using their voice in a professional manner, in the sense that you're changing your voice a lot, you're using your voice a lot, you should have a warm up or some sort of cool down if you're noticing chronic hoarseness or voice changes or hoarseness or tiredness of the voice at the end of the day. So these are called trills, and you can do them with lip trills or tongue trills. So lip trills are also known as raspberries or horse lips or baby lips. I've heard all sorts of different things. I'm going to tell you that I help myself out a little bit, and you certainly can do the same thing. But I want to make sure that your lips are moist with chapstick or whatever. And then I gently take my index fingers and put them not right at the corners of my mouth, but out a little bit. And you can see it's very gentle pressure. Okay, I'm not pushing in, I'm very gentle. And then I kind of think of like a sigh, or that I'm just so incredibly tired. And so the lips are doing all of the work, really, as the air comes out. So I'm moving the tension away from my throat and onto my lips. So try it. And yes, it should feel funny and silly, and maybe you're channeling your inner child right now, but this is a really easy and relaxing way to warm up the voice. Now, if you have got that down, no problem. Let's go up and down. Let's stretch our vocal cords so that there's no tension placed on them. So, you're going up and down in pitch and allowing the vocal cords to be easy while you are putting all the tension on the lips. For those of us that cannot do the lip trills, or maybe it just takes a little while, you certainly can do it with your tongue. So there are tongue trills. So for those of you out there who have a fabulous Spanish R trill, this is going to be right up your alley. I am not one of those people with fabulous R, but I have learned some different things. In doing all sorts of different voice exercises, if you do things that are natural, it's going to be much, much, much easier. So like with the lip trills, if you're pushing or you're forcing it or you're working really hard to make it work, it's probably just not going to do anything, or you might just get 1 or 2 trills. In order for it to work, you have to almost just not even care, just not even give it a lot of work, almost like a sigh, okay? So with the tongue trills, I naturally go back to what I did as a kid, and it almost sounds like a gargle. If you have water, grab some water, because you don't want to do this dry. And then, so my tongue is more towards the back, but if you were able to do a tongue trill that was more towards the front, like a Spanish R, or you could think of the sound B-R, B as in boy, so or and it should feel effortless. It should feel easy for you to do if you're doing it correctly. Now, some people that may have trouble doing the tongue trills, it might be helpful if you gargle with water, spit it out, and then try that gargling motion again with the sound to try and take advantage of that muscle memory. So those are just some thoughts. And I see a couple people have joined. Thank you so much for hanging out with me during your lunchtime, doing some voice exercises and so forth. The other thing that I normally go over is breathing. And Chrissy did a nice job of going over some deep breathing and so forth. I do some breathing that's a little bit different with regards to pairing it with voice, and I'm probably going to show that in a different segment because I'm trying to keep these short, but you can't produce good voice if you don't have good breath control. Excuse me, that's what allows us to have any sort of voice as well as to get louder or softer. So I'm looking over here. I did have a couple of questions that people sent me offline, and I said that I would answer them so that everyone would have the response. But some of the questions that I received was, does voice therapy hurt? No, it does not hurt. You may come in and you may notice that you have tension in your throat. You know, I probably could do, what time is it? I probably could do a little bit of laryngeal massage. So this is one that, you know, you certainly can do as well. I have a fairly long neck, so you should be able to see it. But one thing that we do is kind of check how tight these notches are. So I usually take my thumb and my middle finger and I will make like a horseshoe shape, come all the way to my neck, and then come forward. And if I look up just a little bit, I should be able to feel these little pockets that I can get my fingers into. If you can get your fingers into those little pockets, that means that that area is nice and open and fluid as it should be. If you can't, or you're like, I don't have any pockets, I can't feel anything there, or I can't get my fingers in, then that area has gotten tighter and smaller. It's very similar if you've been driving for a long time and your shoulders creep up. It's like that. You have to almost relax them and open that space up. So that's what that laryngeal massage would do, and that's something that I usually do with clients. So some people that come in, this area is very, very tight, or maybe it's this area here is really, really tight. And when we start working, it's just letting us know what areas are tight. So it's not that the therapy hurts, but it's certainly going to show what areas are tighter or stiffer, and areas that we need to address. Sometimes, depending on what you're experiencing, you may benefit from some physical therapies for some more manual therapy. Sometimes the stretches that we work on together will be enough. Let's see, what's the next one? What is a typical voice problem? So I would say probably the one that most people are familiar with are vocal nodules. Some people call them vocal nodes. Some people call them singer nodules. So nodules in of themselves are typically benign, but that's why you want to go and see your doctor to double check. Usually they're like little calluses that form on our vocal cords, and they form just like you would have any other callus formed with friction and overuse. So the gold standard of treating vocal nodules is actually voice therapy and learning different ways to use your voice. So all of the stretches and some of the techniques I just shared with you would be the beginning part of how to start moving the voice, and then there's other techniques that we would do. And over time, those calluses ideally should start to get smaller and smaller, and then the voice quality should improve so that it's not hoarse or rough or breathy or tight sounding. Okay, how long is a typical session for voice therapy? It's usually about 30 to 45 minutes depending on what we're working on. And does voice therapy work by teletherapy? Okay, so all of us are in this COVID-19 social distancing situation. All of my therapy sessions have moved to teletherapy, and voice is actually the very best situation for teletherapy because we can do so much by way of just conversation. So that's excellent. Does voice therapy work? So voice therapy works for many people. It does not work for 100% of the people, to be quite honest with you. Some of that has to do with the diagnosis. Some of that has to do with the person's compliance and doing homework and so forth. But I would say for the greater population, it does work. So if you have any other questions or you're catching this at a later time, please feel free to post them, email me. This is on the Facebook page. If you have any questions that you want to talk to me about privately, you can private message me. My website is phoenixspeechtherapy.net. There's some more information on there. And I hope that this has been helpful and just one way to kind of do some different things for your voice. I will leave you with some vocal hygiene tips, and that would be: number 1, drink plenty of water. Number 2, if you're drinking caffeine, that's fine, but try and balance it out. So it's 2 cups of coffee to, I said that wrong, 1 cup of coffee to 2 cups of water. That's really the ratio you're looking for, and it may need to be a situation where you slowly do it. If you are somebody that notices that you sleep with your mouth open, most of us do, have a humidifier or a diffuser or something that's giving you some extra moisture in the air. Just make sure you follow the humidifier and diffuser's recommendations on how to clean it. Alrighty. Thank you again for joining me. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend and Friday, and I'll see you next Friday at 12:15, same time, same place. Thanks.